Okay, so that's what we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna share my screen. So this requirement document should be familiar with all of you, right? The one that we started working through it. So now let's talk about it. How do we take a requirement and start drilling it down into the different test cases and what we need to do? Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one, which says that the site administrator can manage anything on the site, including dealer users, lender users, and other type of users. So it says, if I have to start testing that requirement, how would I go about it? But since this is your first time, I'm going to make this even simpler, right? In order for a site administrator to do anything, what does they need to do? They should be able to do login, right? The first thing that they need to do login. So I'm going to simplify this into a login ability, right? So I said, hey, my first thing I want to try it out and test it as a super user. I want to log in into the system. Okay, everybody with me? Why would I need that as part of the other requirement? Okay, so the first thing you need to do about it is, okay, if I have to test this, what are the different things I need to do? Okay, so I need to start thinking about the possibilities, right? What are the things that could happen when somebody tries to do this thing? Okay, so typically, right, most of the login is a user ID and a password, right? So what are the different possibilities I can think about it when somebody says, hey, you need to log in through user ID passwords? The first thing is I give you a valid user ID and a password, right? So my first thing I can do it. Are you guys able to read through it? To see it. Increase the thickness. Okay. Right, so I do it. Right, that's one possibility. What are the other possibilities? Invalid what? Okay, so the next one is right. What is the other possibilities?
You can do it like invalid user ID and valid password. That can be another case. If you go like that, then valid user ID, invalid password can be possible.
Okay. Yes.
There is one possibility there. ID is okay and password is okay, but not able to log in.
But that's not the scenario that you need to think about it, because the system, as long as I have a valid user ID and a password, I should be able to log in, right? If system doesn't log in me with a valid user ID password, there's something wrong with the system. It's not wrong with me. Right? I'm thinking it from a user, I'm validating that what all I need to do it with that.
If you don't give any input,
Don't give any input. So what I'll just say is. Right? Any other combination?
Yes, both e-values like the password and the same.
Is it different?
The password.
As long as there is a
Yeah,
invalid, it should not matter, right?
Oh,
If my user ID is invalid, password, right or wrong, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So in order for me to test the system. So in order for me to log in into the system,
Yeah.
right? I have to think about these 4 conditions and test for that. I can say that this functionality works only all these 4 works. Agree? Right? So think about it, as my scenario is logging into the system. My test cases for each one is going to be of this. Right? So what this is known as a tree diagram. I'm taking our requirements and breaking into different trees, branches. And then based on that, everything which is at the bottom becomes a test cases. And that's what you need to write it. Okay. So I'm going to take it next step, right? So it's now that I've broken down into different conditions. How can I test for each one of them? What do I need to do it? Remember, we say it's the first thing you have to do it is test scripts, right? For the test cases. So let's look at the test case. Okay. So this is an example template. There are ways, once you start using the tool will have all of this detail. But if you have to do all initially manually, because remember, we're thinking about process, not the tools at this point, what all information I need to capture. Okay. So typically, like it's in a test case, you try to capture is the project name. For what project and what for module this thing is good written. There's going to be some logistical information about the test case, right? Who designed it, when designed it, what version, if you run it, when it was run last time, what is the priority? Remember, we talked about high, medium, low, the requirement priority. Oh. When they log in, I'm sorry, when they do the priority, is it a high, medium, low? So typically, like if I go back into my requirement, the priority for this particular requirement, I have to be a high, right? Because without logging in, I can't do anything in the system. Okay. Then you will have the title. Then you will also talk about what should be true in the system, what should be the precondition before I run the test case, right? If there is any dependency external that I'm dependent on this thing to occur. The English summary, so I can talk about it. Then it talks around test steps. What data I will need it in order to run this test. And the post condition, what should be happening in after I successfully execute this test case, right? And then the status and notes, right? Status are like, remember, planned and all those things. Okay, so let's write the one that we talked about for this thing, valid ID and a password, right? So I have to do that. So I'll just say it's my project name is Airflow. This is, if you recall it, this was around security, right? When you look at the design function. So I'll say security. So I'll just do it version 1.0. Since I haven't executed the test case, I'm still in the planning phase. Right, we talked about the priority is going to be a high. Right, test case, if we are using any of the online tool, it'll give default the test case IDs. I'm just going to go ahead and call it T01. Right, so just keep it simple, right? Let's say it's valid login, super user valid login. Precondition. So this is an import, right? So precondition, if my ID is not provisioned in the system, can I log in? Cannot, right? So that has to be true in the system before I can try to run this test case. Otherwise, this will not work. Okay, I'm not going to have any dependency. Summary. So this one goes into detailed description. What is the test case? Typically, you try to identify what is the test condition that you're trying to test with. Then you go and step, right? So at this point, you start identifying what step-by-step things I will do it in order to perform that particular test. And what is the expected result is going to be. Okay, so test step should talk about any actions that you will do it. Okay, so let's talk about, right? If you're trying to log in into any system, what is the first thing you do?
You open the page.
You open the browser, right? And then do what?
Launch the application.
You go to the home page,
Homepage.
right? Or login page, whatever the page is that, right? So you can say in the browser, right? Go to the URL. Does everybody know what URL stands for? Right?
Local resource location.
Right? So you entering is not sufficient. You have to like says, hey, launch it, whether you hit the enter or on a right click, which tells you to go. Now this one just says, hey, I'm going to go into data section, right? So I know I need to provide some sort of a URL, right? And that URL should be an application homepage URL. Okay, we'll come to this thing in a moment. The next thing, well, so when I do that, what happens?
You gotta show
What should I expect?
We go into the site.
site.
So the browser will display that home page,
Yeah.
right? So. Right, that's what's gonna happen. Okay. What do you do after that?
Login user ID and password.
Right, so you want to enter
Login as a-
enter the user ID and the password, right? So I'm gonna. Yeah, so this is going to do. Did you take any action at this point? Is entering that piece of information sufficient? So if I go to the user ID, so let's do, right, so. Let's take an example, right? Let's just go to,
Do the change, maybe.
so I'm gonna go to bank site, right? Need to move this thing out of my way. Gotcha. Didn't start it. Okay. So if I do it like it's, let's say, it's sufficient.
No, you have to log in.
You have to click on the login, right? So that's the action. Entering field itself is not an action enough, right? So I need to go and do that, right? So that's what I need to do, right? So when I do that, what happens?
It should send you right to the page.
So it will display the page.
User
What page it will display?
Your user page.
Your user page? Right, so in this case, it will be a home page for a super user, right? But is that what happens? What is the first thing that happens?
Is it like it draws the data that you need?
It logs you successfully, right? It takes your user ID and a password. You expect that it gets validated. Then identifies who you are. And then based on that, it'll display the page, right? So that's what the expected result is. It's not any home page. It's going to validate me, who am I? And then going to display the page. So that is the expected behavior at that point.
Login success.
Right, so log in successfully, right? Right, so that's what it expected results that I would expect. The fonts are different. One is able, one is. Okay. So that is what happens. What is the next step? What do you do next?
I mean, wasn't that what we were checking for to see?
That's what the condition we're looking at is. Am I done at this point?
To see so, because you're already logged in with your user ID and the
Precisely,
password.
right? So think about it. What I went about trying to do it is, can he log in?
Yeah.
That's all. We are not trying to do anything else. It's just the login. Can I do this or not? Right? So I don't need any more steps. Right? So what are the other pieces of data that we needed now? I say it in for this particular step, second, right? I said I'm going to provide a user ID and a password. Where would I find this data? Requirements? Let's log in into the requirements document. Did I find the data here? Where is it? Where is the URL? Where is the site administrator login information? Is it here?
No.
Where is it then?
In the data section,
In the data section of what?
the user.
That's what I'm asking you guys, right? What I should put in here? Well, what should I put in here?
Should be like.
Okay, if I give you this, sorry, here's my question. If I give you this, can you log in into the R1 application and validate the super user and ID? Because I don't have URL. Right? Where would I get that URL? That's the question I'm asking you guys.
Shouldn't it already be provided to you under?
By who?
By the,
Is the business going to decide what URL?
The
The development, right? So you talk with the development team and says, hey, what is the user ID that you created in the system by default for me to use it? And what is the URL when I start up the application, that what URL it's going to be, the homepage is going to be accessible. So you work with somebody in the project team or in the development side and says, what are these pieces of information? Okay. Now there are certain pieces that eventually you will be able to dummy up and create yourself, but there are certain startup information that you needed from the development team. Okay. So in this case, when you look at it, so it's in your first section, right? We said this is what we're going to use it whenever the system is available. These are the user ID and a password we'll use. So that was the agreement with the development team. Okay. So I'm going to say this is my URL. Okay. And then super user is as training. So this is the password. And the password, let's say it's all lowercase training. So given this information, can I execute those steps? Right? So now I know I have enough detail provided that if I give it to somebody, they can run this test case and tell me whether it passes or not, right? What should be the post condition? What's going to be true after I execute this test cases? So super user,
Able to log in.
is it able to? Think about it. What is the condition of the system now? He is logged into the system. At this, no, not successful. He is logged into the system at this point.
So basically, you have to make it super clear to whoever is about to look at the document.
Yes. The goal is if I give this document to you, can you follow the instructions and tell me whether it passed or failed? If you do not have enough detail for me to log in, I cannot log in. So that's a sign that, hey, I need to do some more work on this test case. Okay. At this point, the status is planned. Right? Because I haven't executed anything. This is what I've been kind of planning. So that's the test case. So you need to get this level of detail. Now, all I did was look at this condition, right? I haven't done anything else. So I still have to write the similar test cases for the remaining 3 conditions in order to say I am able to successfully finish with testing this scenario. Everybody with me? Any questions? Do you guys see it, how I went about the process? Right? All right. So I'm going to save this so you guys can see it at a later stage. So I'm going to say, hey, super user valid login. So that just by looking at the file, I can see it. Any questions on this thing? All right, let's do.
So the sentence would be like all clear directions to do it, right?
Yeah, if you don't provide a clarity, think about it, right? 6 months later, you work on a whole bunch of projects. 6 months later, you're trying to do a regression testing on this thing. If it's not clear, and it's not you who are trying to do it, somebody else, can they do it? That's the yardstick that you need to think about. If there is a crisp enough, anybody can do it. Right? But also it provides you clarity exactly what you're trying to do it. Okay. So let's take one more example. Okay. let's do one of the searches one. Okay, let's do this one. Let's do the first one. All right? The user must be able to search an existing dealer by dealer name and address. Okay? Yes? Okay. Say that again.
Can you do like this, this script for invalid ID and the right department? So
Okay.
how does that one go?
All right. So you say it's that like it's in instead of this scenario,
Yeah.
what you want to do this scenario?
Invalid password.
So you want to do this scenario, right? The second one? All right, so let's quickly do that. Okay. So I'm gonna be lazy. Because I'm gonna just say, hey, I'm gonna duplicate this thing. And you said invalid password? Okay, so let's go through. So what is the title, right? I need to do. I'm gonna change this to say login. With invalid password. Okay. Does super user need to exist? Right, whatever the ID that you're trying to talk about. But in this case, I'm not going to worry about the password, right? So there is a valid ID that I'm known it, right? Dependency none. So what will be the summary, right? So in this case, can I log in with the invalid password? It should not be, right? So I should change that. Cannot log in into the system using valid user ID and invalid password, right? So now one of the preconditions, it's going to be once in a blue moon, right? But whatever they enter provided, we don't want them to just say, hey, this matches, right? So I'm going to be saying, hey, specific precondition. I'm going to give some password, which I know that it's not valid, right? Okay, so it's going to be different in the system than what I'm going to try to specify in that. It has to be true. As long as those two conditions are true, I know I'm in the right state of the system. All right, what are the steps? Is the first step going to change?
No.
It will be the same, right? What will be the second step? I'll still do the same, right? What is the expected result at this point? So what should do?
User can't be able to know. It's not- not- It's failing.
Then what should I get?
Error message. Invalid password.
The messages of invalid password or user.
Right? So typically, if you look into most of the system, when it fails it doesn't tell you that you have invalid password. It tells you the combination is not valid, right? Because for the security reason, they don't want people to keep trying the wrong things by telling you what is wrong. Okay. Good. Okay, what happens next?
That's it, because you already tested it.
That's it, because I'm testing for that condition, right? So in this case, let's say everything else is gonna be same.
Password, different.
Let's say I use this. Right? Everything else same? So that's how I would do the second. I'll do the same process for the third and fourth tree that I have it here, right? So third and fourth will exactly do the same thing. Okay. Does it help?
In that case, we have to allow.
Would the post condition stay the same though?
That's a good catch. Is the post condition the same?
No, you can't do that.
No, we cannot do nothing. You can write the-
Right.
Right.
That's the first condition. Super user is not logged into the system. It's everything is still remain the same. Right? Okay, hang on one, go ahead. Can you speak a little bit louder because of the fan noises? It's very hard for the people even to hear on that.
We have to put the notes down, say that.
We have to put some notes on the note section.
You can, but like it's, do I need to? Because I already have that information up here. All that detail is here. Right? Notes is like it's, you can put it specific things that you want people, whoever is the executor, to know it. Right? But in this case, there is all the detail that they need to know. It's already present in the system through the steps or through the preconditions and the description.
Yeah, sometimes when somebody reviews the test case, then they can put the corrective action in the note as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's used for all kind of purposes, not just for the testing.
Any other questions? Okay. So let's flip back, right? So the other thing you want to do it is now let's take this requirement. Right? What is the first step we're gonna do? Build a tree, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna break it down to build a tree. So let's break it down. Okay. Okay. So that's the requirement. The user must be able to search an existing. So that's my requirement. So let's talk through it. If I want to break it down, what I will break it down into. Just help me.
What page they'll need to go to search the dealer name and address.
But those are specific things.
Mhm.
I'm trying to do this requirement.
So
Go back to the same way that we did it for the login, right? I didn't say which side or page I need to go. Right, while breaking the tree, I just said, what are the different conditions I need to test
search
for?
the dealer name and address.
Valid dealer name and address.
Okay,
Dilip, can I ask one question here?
uh-huh.
So who is doing the work here? I mean.
Who is the
what
user?
Contact here. I mean, do you guys understand the requirement? What is trying to, what is the context for the requirement?
So the manager is going to do it.
Are you asking me a question? Or are you telling me?
I'm saying it, manager is going to do it.
Manager is gonna, which manager?
It can be
Area
the regional manager or area manager.
I was thinking it goes with the super user that we're already. talking
Goes with the super, well, super user is one of them, but where would I find the information? Who could be that user?
Yeah.
That's what Harshal is pointing to.
Do you guys understand the context of this requirement? What point?
When this will happen in
When
the
this will
system?
happen in the system?
The user must be.
Oh, so when the user decides to like log in the system.
This is not user logging into it.
No.
There is nothing to do with the login, right? Here, for this requirement. Have you guys read the requirements document, right? Twice at least?
Walk me through it when this will happen.
Yeah.
Because I clearly told, right, super user login. Customer who?
The customer.
Customer is never able to log into the system.
Not related to the.
So would it be
This,
Okay, hang
this
on.
will be the manager
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
the particular, the manager of a particular dealer who want to see what are the, the employees.
Here's my question. If I'm already working at the dealer shop, do I need to search myself?
No.
Not the manager.
Even manager is working there, right? The description you gave it is manager working there, he needs to look for the employee. I'm the manager, I already know which dealership I work for. Or I at least better know which dealership I'm working for.
But under that manager, there will be employees, right? So
Yeah,
there
no,
might be 5 or 6 employees.
That's not the scenario when this will come up in the picture. Hang on, do one thing. You're
Okay,
gonna
go
speak,
ahead,
just
Kunal.
raise your hand so I
Yeah.
know, instead of talking multiple things at the same time. Because it's gonna be difficult for the people on the Zoom to hear who is talking at what time. Go ahead. Site administrator, good, but when?
What point he is doing the work? If you are saying site administrator, when he will do this work?
When the customer is coming to the.
When he want to add a dealer, because before adding the dealer, he want to search whether he is there or not.
Okay, for online, also pause it, like it's if you have, just raise your hand, so that way we can have one conversation at a time in the room. Okay? So. All right. Go ahead. Agents, but when they will do it. That's what the question. Super user will do it, agents will do it, but when they will do it. Applications of what? No, but it's nothing about the loan application. If you look into the requirements, right, there is nothing around the loan application.
Anybody online wants to say anything? Go ahead.
Hang on.
Any thoughts?
The-
Yeah, that's it.
Hang on.
All right.
Before the site manager want to enroll any of the dealers, he want to check whether the dealer is present or not. So might be he will be using the username and the address to search that particular dealer.
So that's definitely a scenario, right? Where, hey, I'm trying to like sign up a new dealer. I need to make it sure that its dealer exists in the system or not beforehand. So that's one possible scenario. Right?
And when they will sign up the dealer?
Yeah, what point they sign up the dealer? At the beginning, right?
So this happens at the beginning.
Right. So the dealer gets signed in first. Before even any of the users or anything else can do it. Right? Now you talk about site administrator can do it. We also talk that the agent can do it, right? So those are the two people. Who else can do it?
No.
How can I sign up a dealer? I don't even have a login into the system. Hang on, use the follow the rule. Go ahead. Our flow is what we already said, it's site administrator, right? Who else?
Okay, go ahead, Archana.
Regional manager.
Okay,
Super user.
Super user is same as site administrator, right?
Right.
So, but where would I find the information? Where are you coming up with it? So if you look back in the requirements, right? Who all has the ability to manage the dealership? That's what you need to think about it, right? And if you go.
I think you must it, but yeah.
I think it's here, right? So who all can manage dealer? Like you look into this column, I can do this individual with this capability. The RFREF, area manager, and the regional manager. Those are the 4 types of users. You can do it, right? So that's what this is talking about.
So you
So-
can understand the process, right?
When you say user,
Yeah.
now I know there are 4 different users. Right? So I'll do it as super user, right? Agent, area manager, regional manager. You know, that user meant for any one of those 4 individuals. Okay, so if I'm testing it, I need to make sure I can log in at each one of them. And can I have that access to this functionality? So that's one view. That's already a 4 angle. Now, let's say we pick one thread and says, as an agent, I'm trying to do this. Okay, so now let's look at it. If I'm as an agent trying to do it, then what are the different possible conditions?
Other than these 4, anybody are able to log in or no? This is the-
What do you think?
Like,
What does requirements tell
like
you?
lender, like, in that case, like, lender is able to log in or no? So,
This
We
is
are
not
not-
about login. This is about ability to search dealer by dealer name. Okay. So you understand the context, but once you understand the context, you stay focused on the requirements. Okay, what is the requirement says?
So all these 4 are only the authorized, like, user who they can search.
Right.
DTM and
Right? Anybody else should not be able to do it because that's what the requirement tells me. Okay, so I'm gonna focus that this 4 user can do it. Let's pick one thread, agent, and let's say it's, what does agent will do it now? What are the different possibilities and scenarios?
Oh, so you're,
Go ahead.
so are you saying that we have to, instead of the valid ID and password, we're supposed to use like the super user or the dealer? So we're supposed to have the user ID.
Yeah, so you're still getting drilled down into the data. Don't you go there yet. When we write the test case, we'll definitely go there.
Oh.
Right? But think about what are the possibilities I need to do. So if I looked at it, right, the scenario here, there are 4 possibilities that I needed to test in order to say that can I log in or not successfully. Right? Same way, what are the possibilities I need to do it in order to test it? Can an agent search a dealer by dealer name and address? Right? So what are the possibilities? Let's step back for a moment. Right? How many data fields that they are able to search on? Name and address, right? So similar to what your user ID and a password, right? I have 2 data field that I need to think about it. Is that all that they're looking for? No. What else are they looking for? What does et cetera mean to you guys?
Unique change number.
What is it? My first rule that I told you guys as quality assurance people, you have to remember is you don't make up your own requirement. Are you making up your own requirement and you say, I want to search by franchise number?
That's it. That's it, that's all.
That's it?
First we make sure that these all 4 are able to search or no. So first.
But when you say able to search,
Like dealer name and address only, they are.
so you're just saying is ignore the ETC,
So,
right?
Yes.
yeah.
You're telling me, come up with my requirement,
Yeah.
user gave me some, ignore part of it. So I told you to build a house with 4 rooms. I don't want to do it with 4 rooms, I want to do it with 2 rooms. Tough luck, it's my decision, right? The user is gonna pay you for it.
Perfect. So these 4 are. able
User
to
is
search.
never gonna pay it, Nathan. If you do not fulfill the requirement, they're not gonna pay for it.
You are right, sir.
So, ETC, you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
What do you have to do it now?
Don't you have to specify, go back to the developer and
Yeah.
ask them, hey, you know. what
Developer? Will I go back to developer?
Isn't that where you're getting the information from?
Where are you getting the requirements from? Who gave you a requirement?
Business analyst.
Business analyst or user,
Oh,
right? So you need to go back to them,
okay.
right? What did you guys fail here to do it? Now, what is the first thing I asked you to do at the end of the week 1? When you read the
3C.
requirement, 3 C and T. Did you apply that?
No.
What's wrong here with 3C? Which condition fails? What are the 3Cs? Okay, one person at a time. Consistent,
Complete.
complete, and correct. Which one is missing here? Complete, right? Why it's not complete? Because etc., right? So all of you failed in the first test itself because you didn't apply 3C and T. So you let the bug go through it from a requirement phase to the design phase. So you already doubled the cost to fix issue. So always, when you look at the requirement, apply the 3C and T. Can you do this? If not, you're going to fail that. You're going to pass it to the next phase. Right? So we need to go back to the business users. So what do you mean by ETC? Right? All right, let's go. Let's have Herschel play as a business user's role. Herschel. In this requirement, when you say ETC, what are the other things that you have it in the mind that they should be able to search on?
So for sake of simplicity, I would remove the ETC. I think it's a typo,
Okay,
so they should get rid of it.
so,
Those are the main two criteria for that.
okay. So it says get rid of the ETC. So now, what happens next? Do you guys have enough information? Name, address, search existing dealer? You guys feel good? No? Why not?
We need more information, more data.
Like what? But again, when we did the requirements for user ID and a password, did I say it's what user ID and what password? No, I just said I have two data fields, dealer name and a password. That's going to be used in. Do you need anything else? What? Hang on.
I'm sorry.
Again, use your hand so that I can figure out who is trying to speak it.
Yes, we need more, like I said, more data.
More data, but what more data? You tell me exactly what more data means to you.
First name and last name.
Hang on. Go ahead.
The franchise number,
Franchise number? Where is the franchise number from?
that will make it unique for the dealer. then.
Again, read the requirement. The user must be able to search existing dealer by dealer name and address.
You need to focus on what is given in the requirement. That's the first.
You're
rule of
making
thumb.
up your requirement when you say it's franchise number.
You,
Oh.
Hang on, go ahead. Ramya.
First name and last name of the dealer.
let's talk about.
Okay, let's talk about it. First name and last name of the dealer. Okay,
He's active or not.
active or inactive.
Wow, I see a lot of requirements coming in, Dilip. We will never be able to finish the project.
What are you guys doing at this point?
We're searching for the dealer by the.
No, you are telling user, I know you gave me a requirement, but here is what I want gonna do it in the system. I'm gonna ignore what you tell it because you don't know what you're talking. So I'm gonna tell you what the system is gonna do it. That's exactly the message that you're giving it to the user. Okay, Nitin,
What is the meaning of existing?
what do you mean by existing?
Means only who they are in the system or any dealer?
How would you say it's existing? So if you go to the bank and bank asks you, do you have an existing account? What does that mean to you?
Means who they are having account already.
So when you go to the bank and a bank person asks you, do you have an existing account? What they're asking you is, do you have an existing account with us? That's what that means, right? So existing dealer means, do the system have that dealer present in the database? Right? That's what existing means. Okay,
I feel like with this, it'll have to be in the website itself, like for instance, belong to the.
okay, you guys are going in so many different directions. What I ask you, and this is the listening things you need to be careful when you do it. When you go talking to the team, the first skill you need to apply is the listening skill. What we talked is Ramya talked about the first name and the last name of dealer. And I said, let's talk about it. And all of you went in completely different directions, not even listening what the conversation happening in the class.
I think they are having hard time,
Right.
understanding when this requirement, or what it means. I think, that's what, they are having trouble with, seems
Okay.
like.
So think about a scenario. Okay? And we talked through that. And you have to keep your questions built on the context that has been addressed so far. So let's talk it. What is the context we addressed? Okay. Agent walking to a dealer, they want to sign up that dealer so that dealer can be part of the RFlog ecosystem. So that the dealer can then go ahead and leverage other lenders to utilize the RFlog system. Remember the whole process? That agent goes into the dealer and signs them up. At that process, they're gonna figure it out. Is the dealer already exist in the system or not? And that's what the agent is trying to do. So we talked about that context, right? That this is when it's gonna occur. So now that I'm like its agent, I went to the dealer and says, yeah, I want to sign you up. Let me go see it if you exist in the system first or not. So I'm gonna pull it up the system. Right? And I'm gonna go put in a dealer name and address type of information to search. That's the context. Okay. Next thing we talked in that context, that I may ask a question, wait a minute, Dilip. The first element, right? I understand there are two elements, but the first element, dealer name, you need to think about first name and last name. And I said, let's talk about it. That's the context so far. So any subsequent questioning we're doing it, till we finish that context, don't go off the field. Focus on that first name and last name.
So you understand the business process here, right? Because that's the first thing you need to understand what business process they are doing, because everything ties to the business process. Okay, everything is part of the business process, whatever is happening here. You need to wear that hat. I mean, that's why we ask you to read the requirement document, understand what's the overall flow. Basically, remember the context diagram that talks about the overall flow. You have to memorize that, you have to understand that. Without that, you won't be able to test anything. Okay, or visualize anything.
All right, so let's talk it. So now that's the context. Let's go to Jerome. Jerome, you had something to add?
Yeah, my name is Theodora. Sorry, I'm using my husband's computer. So I wanted to specify that is the name as is the existing user's name showing in the system. And then maybe is the address also showing the system. So that's what I wanted to say.
Okay. So what, so when they talk about dealer name, like you said first name, last name, she's asking question, what name it is, right? So think about it, right?
Who is dealer?
Shouldn't it be the shop's name if it's the dealer?
Yeah, it's about dealer, it's not dealer user. So it should be shop's name, right?
Mhm.
So for example, Jermaine Honda Dublin or Riker Ford, right? Those are the dealer's names. So are they gonna have a first name and last name? They are not. It's gonna be this. Okay? What about the second element, address? Yes?
You need street name, number,
Ah.
state and zip code.
Okay, so your address is not just a simple element, right?
Right.
So you again failed the 3C and T. Because it's, I have enough information, you don't have enough information. Right? You talked about the address. Address has multiple fields. What do you mean by address? So what do you do?
I got a question. So if the 3 C's and C fail, you send it back to the.
Yeah, that means you don't, do you have enough information to actually even write a test case?
Nah, so who you send this back to?
You don't send it back, you go talk to the business.
You communicate back to the business analyst, you talk, pick up the phone, send an email, whatever you need to do. Until you get the answer, you cannot write your test case.
Right.
That's what it means.
So in this case, right, since Harshal is playing that role, let's just ask him. What questions you would ask him? Is that the question you're gonna ask? What is the question you ask him? Because
What
you have
would
to
your
frame the question also. You can't just simply say, hey, I'm gonna ask you a question. Well, what questions you want me to ask? What questions you want me to ask to Harshal?
The phone number
The phone number? What is the phone number?
of the.
You're going off the track. Remember what it says, stay
It's an
focused.
address,
Focus,
right?
stay focused on address.
How you find, how you want me to find, like address, like through zip code or city or area
Okay.
specific?
So you have to, you are going on the right track, right? But you have to frame it, right? So it's a, let's talk to Harshal, right? So Harshal, you say that it's gonna be dealer name and address. Knowing that the address is gonna have a multiple components. So what kind of details you wanna be using it in order to serve the user from the address? Do you want just only by city, or you want city, state? What kind of address fields you wanna utilize for? search?
Yeah, so as a user, I need to be able to search by street address
Okay.
and the zip code. I need to be able to narrow it down, the dealerships that I'm looking for by zip code and the street address.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Okay. Now, I want you guys to watch it. Okay, I'm gonna ask Harshal some questions because you guys still struggling with 3C and T. To me, this is still not a fulfilled requirement. This is still not correct or complete in the license. It's correct, but it's not complete. Okay. So Harshal, when you say it needs to be searched by dealer name and address, and you specify two different elements within the address. When I'm going to go search, do you anticipate me to enter all three fields or any one of those fields?
it will be any one of them.
Okay, so it could be one or
Yeah.
more, or is it always gonna be
Yeah.
one of the three?
At least one,
At least one.
and they can enter multiple as well.
Okay, so when they enter multiple. Right. What do you want to use it? So for example, do you want it to match it any of those three possibilities? Or you want to make it sure that there is an end condition that if I specify dealer name and a zip code, that you want me to only narrow it down to those?
So generally, the dealer name and the street address, they needs to be able to enter partial dealer name.
Okay,
And so the search, the zip code, they need to enter exact. They cannot just enter 43 and it needs to pull up, because everything, it will pull up a whole thing from the US, right? It's all 43 and a lot of information. So we need to be able to narrow down.
Okay.
Have a partial search on the dealer name and address.
Okay.
And the zip code needs to be complete.
okay, but then what about the combination? Is it going to be taken both the conditions, or as long as one of the two conditions match?
Yeah, I think as long as one of them matches, then
Okay.
we should have the information.
All right. Okay. All right. Let me see if there's any other things. Okay, so when you talk about partial. Are those things which is starting or anywhere matches? it? So
It's
for
anywhere, yeah. anywhere.
It's anywhere in the string. Okay. Thank you.
Actually, it needs to be starting actually, yeah, because then we need to be able to narrow
Okay.
down,
So
So,
this
yep.
thing should be a starting.
right? So if I enter GER, it should find all the German Toyota or German Honda, whatever.
Okay.
Whatever dealer from the system.
Okay. Thank you for that detail. Okay, so just,
Just a little bit more clarity. In that address field, if somebody like type only the, instead of like complete sawmill road, if somebody's type only sawmill. So you want.
that's a partial, sir.
Oh, yeah, that's. a
That's what he
partial set.
said.
So it needs to pull up all the.
Anything
dealers
that
are on the
matches.
sawmill road.
Any method, yeah.
Anything that starts with that, that's what he said,
Yeah.
right? So that's what, like, it's starting. And if partial allowed for the dealer name and street address, whereas I need a zip code is completed, zip code. Okay. There was a couple of other hands raised. Any other questions?
Anybody from online has anything to add?
So did you guys realize what I did? Okay, So I took this requirement and said, I don't know the details here. So I had a conversation with the user to understand exactly what's going to happen. Right. So now, even though this requirement is kind of simply stated this way, what it means is any one of the 4 users, agent, super user, area manager or regional manager can perform this action. And when they go to search by a dealer, right, there is going to be 3 fields that they need to think about it. And those 3 fields are dealer name, the street address, where the dealer is located, could be potentially located, and the zip code. In addition to that, they don't have to provide a full name for the dealer name or a street address. Whatever they provided, that could be a starting string. So I should match everything that is found in the system, which essentially starts with that thing. On top of that, what he said that if there are more than one field is provided, then you have to apply the exclusive conditions. Or sorry, inclusive conditions, right? So as long as there are dealer, so let's say if I put a dealer name and a zip code. So what he wants is a list of all of the dealer that matches dealer name, plus all the dealers that are present in that particular zip code. So he wants that comprehensive list to search by.
Let me simplify it here. Let's just go with, for sake of simplicity, with the OR conditions, any of them.
Any one
they
of
can
them,
match it.
right.
So
So that's what-
to start with.
I feel like one question I would ask would be, whenever you go to search, would it only be like 1 search bar or 2 search bars? Would the dealer want that? Would Herschel want that to be a thing? Because I've never really gone anywhere on any website where you would have the dealer's name also including the address. For instance, if you start typing an address as in like Germain, you might get Germain Road, you might get blah, blah, blah. So if we can search like in one bar, GDR, like we said earlier, and you get all the Germains in like one dealer slot, would you only get like all the dealers? And then you can have the other option of searching Morse Road or MOR, and then you get whatever else.
So typically, right, so what he's asking is, he's not saying is that how you do it. The how is the implementation team's role, right? And if you look into the requirements document, there is some markup screen that they can provide it. So typically, all they should focus on is initially what is the requirement, and then you build it out, prototype, and says, is this what you mean? But you need to understand it first, what he's talking about, right? So when you talk about, right, whether I need to do it, one, get all the results, you're never going to see it is where you're going to make users search 5 different things if there is a combination of 5 criteria. In most of the systems that you're going to see it, the user, even when you go Google, right? When you put it, you put whatever the first criteria and second criteria and third criteria. You don't do, hey, let me do fun, get me the search result, and then I use search result to apply second criteria. Right? Because then you're going it narrow and narrow. What he said that use or, so he wants a combination, he wants a broader list.
So as Dilip said, right, it's a more like a design discussion, right, with the development team. And you might be sitting on the table because agile world, everybody is on the table when they are doing the design as well. So you will have better picture when they are discussing this requirement, because they need to interpret the same thing, right? And they will actually need to start coding. And if they are having the same issue as you are, as a QA, then they will go and they will clarify it, and both will be on the same time. Now, whatever design they come up,
That's something
you will
that you can
understand.
review with
Yeah,
the user.
yeah, you can review. I mean, with the user, they can review with the team so that you understand how they are implementing it and work through that process. So,
Any other questions? Is there a clarity in the requirements with that for everybody? What it means?
by the way, this is one of the bad requirements, but we wanted to
Give you a view.
give you a view because not all BAs are good BAs. You're gonna run into this. This is very common in the real life. So you're gonna run into this type of requirements all the time, and you have to interpret and break it down to get clarity around.
All right, so now if you think about it, you have 3 data fields. Right? Instead of 2. Right? So you start thinking about how I'm gonna do the tree. Right? So even before that, right, the one thing which he said that it's OR condition, right? It can specify 1 or more, right? So I can start thinking about the number of input it's going to provide, right? In the input says the dealer name, zip code, right, and the street address. So those are my 3 inputs, right? So just like initial, right, I can provide all 3 of the data, right? Or I have to think about what if they provide only 2 data? What if they provide only 1 data field? What if they don't provide any data and click on search? Then what should I have? Right? So then you go look into it and says, hey, if I'm doing a 3 field, what are the possibilities? Right? I can provide a complete dealer name, provide complete street address, a complete zip code. That's one possibility. Right? Other possibility is I don't provide a complete name. I provide a partial data. Right? Dealer name. Partial street address. And a complete zip code. Right? Those 2 are possibilities. Now let's talk for a moment. Okay, and this is where your thinking head comes into play. If I provide a partial dealer name and it pulls up all the list, but how do I know it's a partial name and it's not a full name? How do you know somebody is not having a name as zip or instead of zip code? How do I know which one is partial? I don't, right? Typically, names are variable. You can't predict it as a partial or that, right? So for the activity that you do it, whether you get the exact name or a partial, you will still provide some string. And in the results, all you look at it is, am I getting the in that entire string or not? You guys with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? Any questions? So when I think that way, go ahead.
Okay, so you're saying you have the full name, but you're providing half of the information to see if it's still going to come up with
Right.
the full.
I cannot distinguish while I'm searching on it. I don't know whether it's a full name or partial name, right? Because no matter what I provided, all the results should have that entire string. If I provide the full name, that will be only that matches the full name will show up. If I provide partial name, that all everything that matches partial name will show up.
Okay.
Right? So I'll get a good example on the Google for you guys. So are you guys movie fans? Right? So if I search on Spider-Man, entire thing, or I can say Spider-Man No Way Home, right? Both of them will return the same results that provide Spider-Man. But the one that I use only with the Spider-Man will return all the other old movies also. It will not just return only the new movie, right? But for the search, they don't know whether I'm looking only for Spider-Man. If I spend Spider-Man, it'll give you a bigger list. But they have no context whether I provided the full name or half name. Right? The Google just says whatever you provided, I'm going to find the match. Right? So that's true in the search, right? So if I provide a complete dealer name or partial dealer name, right? It should use whatever that string provides. So at the end of the day, it becomes a, did I match it with the dealer name, street name, and a zip code? right? So even though there's two different conditions that we're thinking, literally when I search it, it becomes only one condition. You guys with me? Or did I lose anybody?
So if you search by German Toyota, right? So it will in the exact name or whatever, complete name, right? That is more like exact. So it will return it, but it will also return in the partial name as well.
Okay.
So it's essentially it takes the same
Yeah.
condition.
Let's do one thing. I think I see a question in your face. Let's do one thing. Let's leave it as is for now.
Yeah.
Right? When we start writing the detail, remember what are one of the conditions for a good test case is not a redundant, right? So we'll figure it out. If I leave this to as a separate, are they redundant or not? Okay, so for now, let's just leave it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. For two, what are the possibilities? Yes. Uh-huh. We're coming up only with all the
These are
possibilities at this point.
Yeah, these are possibilities right now, all of them.
It's a permutation combination. You just apply. Right? Have you used math, right? Permutation combination. That's what this is. So you need to think about if I have two inputs, what are the combinations? Right? I may not have to worry about permutations because the order doesn't matter. Right? Therefore, I will focus on combination. Now, if there are certain things which order matters, then I'll think about permutation. But in this case, it's order doesn't matter. So I'll just use the combination.
There is two possibilities that will meet, like, first, we can search with two, with two fields, any two fields, or we are not able to search with two fields, means all three fields should be there.
No, so you need to think about it. So we already went past that stage. Okay, we say that since there are three fields, the possibilities is that as a user, I will provide all three fields. If I do that, what are my possible combinations?
Oh, so are we looking?
Now I'm looking at is I'll provide two fields. What are the combinations? You guys have to start applying your math a little bit better here. Yes, Archana.
I would say correct dealer name and correct zip code, and then correct dealer name and correct street. Correct dealer name, I'm sorry, correct street and correct zip code.
Right? So let's start drawing, right? When you say it is, I'm gonna provide a dealer name and a zip code. I'm gonna provide a dealer name and a street address.
And
Right?
then street and zip code.
Street and a zip code. Right? So there are three possible combinations. If I don't provide any one of them, then it falls under 1 or 0. Right? So for 1, what are the combinations?
Street address and.
Okay, looks like finally you guys are getting
Right.
there.
With the 0, it's a one scenario only. Right, so that's that. Okay, now do I have to think about any more than that?
Some parts. Like
What are some parts?
like in two, there is a combination possibilities, like in first one, the correct dealer name.
Okay, so you're talking about the complete,
Exact.
not correct, it's complete or partial.
Exact match versus or partial.
Right, so you can potentially do that, right? So possibly each one of them has the two combinations, right? Complete and partial for each one of them. Now zip code is always complete. Right, so this one will result only 2. This one will result only in 2. This one could potentially result into more.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a complete dealer name, other partial name, then a complete zip code, a complete street address, right? And partial dealer, Right, so there's 4 combination going to be depending on what is partial. Right, both partial, both full, one partial, other full, other partial, first full. Right, so there's a 4 combination that you build it. Okay. So now, when you think about it, that requirement that I just stated, how many different conditions I need to test? Everything which is at the leaf are the test cases that I need to write. Right? So I need to first think about the 3 fields. There are 2. Right? For 2, there are going to be 1, 2, 4 here. Right? So 6 and 2 here, 8. So 8 plus 2, 10. When I go to 1, right? 1, there are going to be 2 in this one, right? Because of full and partial. Full and partial, right? So 5 of this, so 10 plus 5, 15. And the one for, I don't provide anything. So there are 16 things or 16 test cases I need to test for an agent.
To make sure, just
make
the
sure
first one.
I can do it only for agent. I need to repeat all of that for super user, for area manager, and a regional manager. Right? So I had 15 times 4. So there are 60 conditions if I want to exhaustively test this requirement that I need to test. That's why it's a full-time job.
And that's why they pay you money for, right? To find the bugs, defects, and you have to start thinking in terms of QA. I mean, how
Right.
can you do QA? Quality assurance.
So let me see.
That's just one requirement out of 400 requirements we have, right? From there.
All right. So think of it, right? So you need to build a tree, something similar to this, right? There's no data, there's 1 field, there's 2 field, and you go with the other aspects, right?
I think it's a different example.
Yeah, okay. So this is a search user.
You do. Yeah, go back to ours.
All right. So if you think about, right, so there are 15 test cases. So your tree, you need to do that. Right? So just like it's we had did in this requirement, login, there were 4. There's going to be 15 for this particular thing. So it was a 1 line that initially you thought, hey, it'll be quick, it's by this or that. You have to think about 15 possibilities. And every possibility results into a test case. Okay.
So how do we know which test case to go with?
So that-
I said, how do we know which test case to go with? At the end, how you do it, all this stuff.
well, can you break it down any further detail? You can't, right? So that's the possibility. So as you keep breaking it, till you reach to a point where I can't break this any further without causing any redundancy, then you stop.
And this is the scenario, right? This is the scenario complete. So when you write the test case, right? Kind of like you did for the username password. So you write in the test summary, this is what you are testing, this particular condition you are testing. So when you write it, you will say, I'm searching dealer by complete name, complete address, whatever, complete zip code, full dealer name and full street address in the test summary, and then you write down all the detailed steps. for it. Provide all the test data. What are you searching? What dealer you are searching? What zip code you are going to import and everything. And so same way you have to write it all the detailed steps for that. I think the is
I'm just typing it so
Yeah.
you guys can get it, because I know I've drawn line,
right.
so I want to get the clarity.
And you have to repeat the same thing for all 16. So not just one, right?
In fact, we missed one if you do the partial,
Yeah.
because you could do the combination of that.
We'll take a picture and send them.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
So that's combination for the first one. right? When I do it.
So partial street address means just, would have all.
It can be anything. I just type it in ABC, right?
But like, you can put the wrong street address, but you can.
But
can
you are
just put
tester,
half
right?
of-
If you put the wrong street address and there is no matching information, what you gonna find? You will not find anything, right? So you make sure you have, when you put those precondition. Remember, in the test case, actual test case, you have to put the preconditions in. And that's where you say, oh, whatever dealer I'm searching for, it already exists in the system. So those are some of the things that you want to think through. You might have to create some dealers in the system. You are QA, right? So you have to create your own test data as well. And then you're gonna go and execute every time, execute with the criteria. So that it returns the same dealer in the search result. basically. We haven't gone through the complete execution process and everything yet, but this is kind of just the beginning, right? But you still need to think about, yeah.
So you say, partial name and partial zip code, like you typed in like 1-3 and then that's it.
Well, we said it's a full zip code. They will always have to type complete zip code. Right? That's what we said in the requirement clarification, right? So if you put 4-3, it will not find anything, right?
But I'm saying like there's this partial. That's
This is complete zip code. There is no partial.
Other one.
Other ones,
Yeah.
right? So what do you mean by partial? When you say partial, right? You put GER instead of putting German Toyota, exact, which is called exact, right?
Mhm.
When you say partial, I'm just going to input GER or G or something. And I should see all the matching dealers, which has a G in the name. Anywhere or beginning, right? That's what we said. I clarified it, right?
I'm just listing it out so that it's easier because instead of trying to type it into the drawing board, this is probably an easier, that's why.
Yeah.
The next one is.
It's a better choice to write down in your computer so that you can.
Well, this is the first thing you will do.
First thing
This
you
is the
do.
first exercise, wherever you get the requirements document, right? And you are reviewing the requirements in the analysis phase, right? You haven't started anything detailed, but when the developers are developing it, because they will go start building the software, you're gonna go through this exercise and start creating it's a called planning process for you, right? Test plan and everything that you need to work through, create the detailed scenarios. You are creating the scenarios, test scenarios, and coming up with the test cases. And then you will document them. So while developers are doing development. So for Arclone, right? So requirements maybe took 2 months, assume for the project, right? You went through 3 CNT exercise, you clarified requirement.
Yeah.
Developer will start developing later on, and you will come up with all the detailed test cases and start documenting them while they are going through the implementation phase.
So those are the all the scenarios, right? So if I do it. Right, so for each one of them, that's how many you have, right? So if you can eventually, if you want, you can number them. Right?
I think these guys are getting excited to now get to work
Oh,
real work
I'm gonna
themselves.
get them do that.
Yeah.
So I told them yesterday, it's a 3-step process. First one is awareness, second one is observe it, and the third one is do themselves.
Yep.
So they have done with the 17 cases that you are giving it for one requirement.
Neil raised, and then go ahead, Neil, your question.
So we started talking about this because Mr. Dilip asked you what kind of requirements you want in it, right? That's why
No,
we have to break it down.
no, this is your job as a QA.
Yeah, I understand that part, but he asked you that what do you want on an address?
Right.
So the requirement needed a clarification because it wasn't complete, right? Because we had a etc. in the requirement and you can't test it. What does it mean, etc.?
So
Okay.
the whole process started with the mindset that, hey, I don't have a complete information in order to write my test.
Mhm.
So it was my quest as a quality assurance person says, I need to understand this. I need to make sure it's complete. So that's when I started having a conversation. And I captured the detail as our conversation happening to make sure I understand what is the intent of the user is and complete that requirement. And then I took that requirement and says, okay, now if I have to test that particular thing, how many different possibilities that I need to think about it or worry about it? Right? So the way that comes out to is then I came out with 17 possibilities. Now, the way you need to think about it, any one of this fails, the system is not working as the user is expecting. I have to pass all this 17 in order to say that agent can search it the way it is intended by the user. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, we talked about it is potentially the complete and partial are redundant. So if they're redundant, this thing will go down, right? But since we had a question, okay, let's just leave it for now as is. And as we start writing the test cases, we'll figure it out whether it's a redundant or not. Right? The redundant means, am I going to do anything differently or am I going to get any different data results? Okay, that's what it means. Okay. You guys good with it?
All right,
All
let's
right.
give them one more.
So I'm going to actually break it down into groups. And then I'm going to do that.
How many we have online now?
I was going to try to see
Six.
that.
I think we have 6.
So 17,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I
Okay,
think.
so 3 and 4 we can do.
17 multiplied with 4.
Okay, yeah, I think we can go that round with it.
Okay. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you guys 2 requirements. And let me. Do we have it in this one or you want me to just type it? Let me just type it.
Yeah.
Is this? All right.
So what I want you guys to do is you are only 2 people here, so. You say about?
They can divide like one.
Yeah,
here or
one over there, but I need for you to work with individual teams, so let's you can move there, I mean temporarily, so while you are doing the exercise and then come back. And Ramya, you can move there.
Things to all right.
So we're gonna give you 2 simple requirements, okay, to begin with.
All right. So here's what I want, right? How many teams we have?
We got 4 here and 2 online.
All right.
Okay.
So let me do. So for online, what we're gonna do is we're gonna essentially break it into 2 groups. Okay, we're gonna do Giti, Sashmita, Elsa and Sheila, you 4 are in one group, and then Neil, Judy, and the third one is going to be the group number 2. Okay. So what I wanted is I'm gonna there is 4 groups here, right? So I'm gonna give you 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so just remember your number. You're 1, you're team 2, you're team 1, and you're team 2. Okay. So whoever is team 1, and then Giti, your team online is team 1, and Neil, your team is team 2. Whoever is team 1 is going to do the password requirements. Take that and build a tree, just like what I did that. Okay.
Make sure you understand the requirement, who is doing the work, right? Identify who will be doing the password requirement, what is the context.
Okay.
When it applies, when this requirement comes in the picture. So make sure you start thinking in that terms, okay?
Okay. And the team 2 is going to take the second requirement,
What's the number? Yeah,
which is the area manager can create following user types: dealer user and after every user.
if we can give the context, they can see here in the, what's the requirement number? So that they can look it in the requirements document as well, to see the context, because that,
So it's section 26226.
yeah.
2.6.
0.2, yep, and within that it's 2.6.
Okay, so that's what this is. And the password is
2.9. Yeah.
oh, it's in the same one,
Same one, 2.9.
2.9.
Okay,
It's 6.1 and 2.9.
The same one.
so,
Hang on.
hang on. Yeah, you guys 4, yeah, it's a team.
Team 2, right?
Yeah, you 1, 2,
Yes.
yep, 1, 2, so, yep.
All right. So those are the 2 one. Let's make sure. Does every table, what requirements you're doing?
The password.
What requirements you're doing? Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing?
User type.
Area manager. Okay. So online. Okay, Giti, Sashmita, Elsa, and Sila.
Give them 3 and give them 4 because she's new. So she's
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna make it 2 rooms.
Go ahead.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So everybody pay attention here and stop having a multiple conversation. So what we're gonna do is first we're gonna bring in the online room to talk through it. So let's start with the second room, like Neil, Judy, your room. Can you share what tree you came up with it? And I believe your requirement was the area manager can create the following user type. Can any one of you who is driving it can share your screen?
I don't know, enable sharing.
Okay. So go ahead and share your screen.
Neil, Judy,
Uh,
any?
uh,
Go ahead, go ahead.
we were just discussing, we didn't really have a tree. But I think the theater, she was the one wanted to represent here.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, Thierry.
Do you say mainly? Okay, so we had area manager as the person who's supposed to be creating. So he's at the top of the tree.
can we discuss the requirement, see what it means?
Yeah, can we start with the requirements? Can you give me the context of when this will happen and what will happen?
Okay, so the requirement is, give me 1 minute, let me get there. So it says area manager can create the following user types: dealer user and Afro user.
Okay.
And under, they said area manager, give me 1 minute. So area manager should be, can manage Afro type of users that are assigned to them. And they can also manage. Hold on.
Yeah, so we are looking at 2.6.2.6, right?
Yes,
Which is talking about area manager can create the two different types of users.
right. So we had 3 incidents. Area manager can create users. Area managers cannot create users.
Okay, can you give me the context of when this is gonna happen? When are they gonna go ahead and create the users?
Sorry, area manager can create dealer users or cannot create dealer users. Right?
Hang on.
So hold on to that. Let's talk about classroom. Group 2, you had the same requirements, right? So that group, can we start with you? Review it, and then I would like you to what your solutions for that. So do you have anything?
Sir, as per us, like, area manager has, like, in this requirement, we have to check that is he able to create dealer user or Alpron user. So we are,
Okay.
as.
Why don't you
we-
come over here, draw the tree, and I'll replicate it.
We can.
I'll replicate it.
You replicate over there.
Yeah, whatever they draw here. Just draw here.
Yeah, all right.
No, I'll start drawing. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Just right here in the middle, okay?
Yeah, just draw it.
You don't have to type, it's already their requirement, right? So, yep, just start drawing, it should be good. So. Write down what you have and we will work through.
Here, we should. Let me do that. I'll replicate that here for the Zoom team. I'm going to share my screen so you can see it, what is being drawn. Okay. So dealer.
Same thing here. So. I'm just asking, like, these are the two things, what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Our.
Your
we
team
all-
thinking,
Yeah,
okay.
we are thinking. But other than this, like, what, like. If you ask me, I can check that.
We are asking team, so this is what you agreed on as a team?
You are using upload user.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Right.
User after user.
That's all we need for now, from that standpoint.
What else? You're missing something?
Put beside if you not use on the upload user.
Okay,
Right?
what is
Yeah.
next? Those are the two. What is next? Do you add anything else? All right, so this 4 are the test cases? As a team, you agreed it?
I want to add, like, I think they are not like,
What's your
okay with
question?
me, but
What's your
I wanna add one more thing.
What do you want to add? Go ahead and add.
Okay. So here, one more thing, I don't know how to make tree, but I wanna check that other than these two, am I like as a like area manager, is he able to create area manager ID? Or
You don't have to think about the scope of the requirement. Don't
Okay.
think about it, what additional thing he cannot or can do it.
okay,
What
But
does
we
it,
can,
as per requirement, I think this is the only thing.
All
that
right,
we are
then,
able
it's
to-
good, it's good. We
can
will-
we add one? We had one with
What else?
this one.
what else you had?
So the other one that we added to this was either or. So when the area manager is able to create the dealer manager, he's not able to create the the dealer user is not able to create the Afro user, vice versa.
So that is there, right? So if you look into this,
We'll wipe this thing, I think you have it, right?
yeah,
Yeah, let me wipe. Hang on, so that we all know what we. Okay. So Dilip has a digital format for this one, so we will check those.
right. So what the team online is talking about is they had one where I can create this, but I cannot create this. If you think about it, right? This 4 scenario covers that. Right? So if I'm successful in this and I fail on this, that's what this is about. Okay, is there any other scenario that you had?
Or anybody else has it.
I want to go to this team. But are we good with the online and your team? Well, let's talk about what is your view.
Okay, so when we were talking about it, I think we're more hung up on the creating of the,
That's okay. So you tell me
So we were.
tell me the
going
tree.
with- We were talking about active and inactive. So if they were active, then you didn't need to do anything with creating the user type, because they already have the information, the dealer user information is already there. And if they were inactive, then you needed the shop ID, everything that's required to make the user.
You guys are talking
Okay.
about the detail steps.
Yeah, that's
So,
it.
okay, so think, zoom out, right? You guys
Yeah,
need to
so
zoom
when we
out.
were talking about it, we were talking,
Okay.
and we realized that that's basically what we needed to create.
Right.
That's the
Alright.
steps.
So my view is, if I tell you, write a test case for that they can create, can you write it? So I want you guys to think a little bit. I'm gonna.
So what I was saying is, I'm sorry for coming in again. So initially, what I was saying is they can't create both users at the same time. It's different from the one he the last one you were pointing at.
All right. So I
Can
want
I
you,
put my thought on this? I feel the requirement is not complete at all.
trust me, the requirement is complete.
It's a complete.
All right. So I want you to think about, it, right? So yes, your thought process was in the right place, but you didn't finish it. Okay, so I just want to think about, it, right? So there are 2 different activities, right? Area manager is going to create a dealer user, right? So let's talk about first go to the dealer user side. Okay. Do you understand what is the difference between a dealer and a dealer user?
Yes.
What is it?
Dealer is the dealer shop. Dealer user is who is using the dealer.
Right, so the area manager is trying to create a profile for an employee ID who works at the dealer shop. Right, so that's one. So while I'm trying to do a dealer user, right? You started it is I can create and cannot create, right? So you had can create and unable to create, right? You have to think it further also. Within a creation, what are the different options I need to do? I can create with all the required fields.
Yeah,
Right. Plus all the optional, right? And I can create only with a required field. Right, those are the two paths that I need to think about and create. When I'm not able to create, what are the paths? No data, I try to create without provide anything, boom, try to create it, it fails. Right, potentially. What is the another path? I give only optional field and no required field. Right? Because if I don't give any required fields, should not be able to create. Now, did you guys know where to find the required and optional field information?
Yeah.
Where?
In the document section.
In the design document,
Yes.
where you have the data section,
Page
right?
number 14.
Right?
13,
And that,
14.
and then I'm missing one required field. So I'm providing all but one, and that fails. Now you can further granular in this aspect and says, hey, can I give, if there are 5 required fields, there are potentially 5 test cases there. You miss one, miss the second one, miss the third one, miss the fourth one, and so on. Do you understand?
So, only this, this particular field, I don't understand, no data and the optional field only, I don't know, that means, if I'm not able to create, means I'm not able to.
But think about it, what are the scenarios when I'm not able to create? You stopped at the first level only. You need to think about what are the scenarios under which I won't be able to create.
Yeah, first one I understand, sir, the, what, that part I miss, the required option,
Right?
that can create, or, like, field. I understand that I miss, but if I'm not able to create anything, means I try to create dealer user or Apple user. If I'm not able to create, how, like.
So think of scenarios under which you won't be able to create.
Means I'm putting right name, dealer username and ID. I'm trying to create ID for dealer user, but not able to proceed further.
I know, but you need to prove it, right? That you are not able to proceed further. In what circumstances?
Okay, so think about it for a moment. Forget dealer use. Have you ever bought anything on Amazon? Okay, so when you go put it, I put things in shopping cart and I go in the order, right? So then I'm trying to check out, I have to put the payment information, right? So it prompts me, let's say you're using credit card. So it prompts you for credit card information. And tell me the scenarios in which it won't accept your payment. You provide only credit card number, you don't provide the other fields. Right? It won't let you go through it and says, hey, it doesn't provide. You're trying to create the dealer user.
Now I'm getting.
You put only, you didn't put any data, you didn't put any credit card into it and says, pay.
Just in case.
It's gonna
if I'm
flag it.
missing something, then only in that particular
Right.
condition, not able to, otherwise. It is completely failed, means completely failed, so I
Yeah.
have to create.
So in all these cases, it will fail because it doesn't have the required data for me to create the user.
Now I'm fixed.
Right? Did everybody understand? Are you on the page? So total at least 5 for one, and I'll replicate exact same thing for our prep user. Right? So same thing for our prep user. Right? So they follow the same thing. Most of you stop here, but you need to think it a little bit deeper. What are the scenarios under which that? But here you can further drill it down on the missing required fields, depending on however many. Okay.
So the-
Neil, you had a question?
Yes, but so when you talk about unable to create all the scenarios, right? But aren't these scenarios are pretty obvious? Like, of course, they're not gonna able to create because there's missing information or there is no data.
But
Like,
isn't it
why do we
testing?
have to? No, but like, why do we have to think that because it's obvious that it's not gonna be able to create it?
So he is thinking the developers are perfect and they will create the bulletproof system and so forth. I think that's what he's assuming here.
So Sunil, think, right, there are things may be obvious, but
Right.
just obvious, right? So are you gonna just say, it's, hey, trust me, that's how the system works? Are user gonna take it?
Okay. I guess you're right. Makes sense.
It's not about the trust, it's about, are you providing the specificity to validate that requirement?
So I guess that's why we didn't think, well, at least I didn't think that part about the unable to create. Why? Because it says on a requirement that it can create.
Right, that's what it says that it can create. Are you proving it, it can create? That's the part that you're doing it.
Right, right.
Right, so like it's going back to the super user login, right? Oh, it's an obvious, you provide user ID and a password. But you have to think about it as, what if I provide you a wrong password? Still letting me go? Because you don't know, they made a mistake in implementation. Typically, most of the times, the developer starts with that, is they give you, no matter what you enter a user ID password, they can go through it because they can implement the other functionality.
That's called hard coding of the passwords and users. It's a common thing.
Okay. We good before moving into second?
So every time we have a diagram like that.
Can we have one conversation, please?
So like you see how it says daily user, you have to like basically have ways in which it can work and which can't work. Both of them you have to have it.
You have to test both. The reason why you want to test both is this is the scenario. If I provide you all the right information, that A, you are able to create it. But you should not be able to create it if you do not provide right information. So going back to the Amazon example, right? If you provide all of the credit card information, then I want to prove it that I can pass the payment process, right? If I don't provide any one of them, then I prove it. I must provide all of this information. If I don't provide it, it doesn't allow me to order. Right? Same thing. If I provide all the information, it enables me to create the user. If I miss some of the required information, then it will not let me create.
So this particular path, right, can create, these are called happy path
Positive
scenario
scenario.
or positive scenario. Okay, this is a positive or happy path. You're gonna hear the term in the QA world or IT world. These are negative scenarios that you are creating here to make sure system works, even if you are testing negatively. Basically, without providing data and those things, it's supposed to work. It should get you error message or whatever, but it shouldn't let you create.
So every time though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Sometimes just the failure of positive automatically indicates negative. But sometimes you have to write an explicit negative scenarios. Okay, any other? All right, let's move to the first group. So Giti, you want to share your screen to show what you have come up with it? Giti, Sushmita, your team, you want to share?
Yeah, we didn't make any kind of presentation, but we know
Yeah.
what test cases we can write when a site administrator or a creates a dealer with a username and password.
Can you, Giti, can you take a picture and send it to Harshal so we can pull it up?
On the fourth or
Yeah, just take a picture on the phone and send to me in the email and we'll pull it up here. Okay.
Yeah, just a minute. Sashmita, you have written anything on what document or anything you have done?
No, I didn't do anything. I just wrote it in the copy.
Okay, so
Can you read? Yeah, first should you
So-
read?
Yeah. So what are the test cases we prepare for this? The password to be, 8 character. The requirement is the password must be 8 character and require at least one uppercase and a special character. For that, we are taking some positive as well as negative test cases. The positive test cases will be like all 8 character with uppercase, one uppercase and special character. The negative test cases will be no data, all 8 character, no special character, no uppercase, and eight. Yeah. Shall I go ahead?
Okay,
hang on a second, yeah.
yeah, you need to think about the tree in order to make sure you complete it all. But it's nice to list it out the way you've done it. However, from the experience I found that listing it out, you're always gonna miss things. So drawing a tree essentially enables you to see it visually, so you know what it needs to be done. So hang on, send your picture. In the meantime, anybody in the classroom,
Make
draw
sure you
your
guys.
tree. Let's start with this team. Draw the tree.
And I think you guys need to explain the requirement as well, what
Yeah.
it means here with the content, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's the important part. That's the first thing you want to do, okay? Have a
Okay,
content, when
talk
is
the
requirement.
context and then draw the tree,
Okay.
right?
The password must be 8 characters and require at least one uppercase and special character.
Okay, when are you gonna run into this requirement?
What point
Tell
the
me the
requirement
path.
comes in the picture, right?
I have the tree, I can.
Before you go to the tree, when this requirement will come into play, when it will happen?
When we are in the
Log in, when you want to log in to the
No, whenever the dealer is going to create a username and password for the user. I mean to say, yeah, if it is a site administrator who is going to create the username and password for the dealer to access the site.
So the first context is who all will be able to create and when they can create this requirement, right? So when they will have. So when you say it's creating a user, what kind of user? Is it a dealer? Is it a lender or it's a dealer user? Lender user, what kind of things I'm creating? That's required in the password.
dealer, I think.
Dealer user,
Dealer user.
even area representative, because the site administrator is going to do all the first step, right? Everything start with the site administrator, what I understood.
Is it just a site administrator or it can be anybody else?
Yeah, area manager.
So think about it, right?
Super user, hardware.
The agent,
Dealer user.
If you,
Yeah, no, I'm not sharing it. Hang on, I know. I'm just coming to the page so I can talk through it. Right? So think about it,
yes.
a table that where you had it. One of the capability was manage the user, right? So anybody who can manage the user are able to create the user. Right? So that entire sets of the people who are able to create any type of user is within your scope. And the time that you're gonna do it is when somebody's creating a password. When is the password is getting created? When a user is getting created?
and how do you know when the password is getting created with the user? Can anybody tell me?
Can you come again with the question? I didn't understand.
The question is, now, are we assuming that password will be required when the user is created?
Yes.
How can you tell?
No, where in the documents, where in the
Yeah, yeah.
requirements or design documents, it's telling you that when I create a user, I have to provide the password.
I mean, it doesn't specifically say, but it says what happens after the process is complete.
It is in the document book, where it says that. You can find it. We need you to find it and point in the document where it says.
What you're saying, it is a generic statement.
Is it on the system design document, page 30?
Okay,
It says the business data attribute name and the description for the user ID, user name, and then the password. Why would I start creating a new user?
okay. So it's in the system design. Right? I want you guys to analyze both documents, right? I mean, because sometimes you will get a complete picture, you may not get a complete picture just looking at the requirements, but design will give you a little bit more information. That's it. Okay. What page number was that?
13. 13, yeah.
Document.
Okay, all right.
So for those who are in the screen, right, under entity user,
Mhm.
where it is.
Password.
Okay, so that third row in that entity users is telling you with the password, it's a login password. And in parentheses, it's required for creating a new user. That's when you know it that, hey, while I'm creating a new user, I'm gonna provide a password.
Even though it's not stated in the requirements explicitly, okay?
So now, everybody understood the context of when it will be doing and who will be doing? Okay, now that you understand the context, let's talk the tree.
Yep.
I'm going to try to replicate digitally for whatever is getting drawn here.
Know what you have, yeah. No worries. That's why we are here, right? By the way, there is no right and wrong answer here, okay? It's just everybody thinks differently, they will have different trees. As long as you come up with the similar number of test cases, you guys are good. I mean, it should be same number, not similar, same number. All right. Okay, let's delete for droid and we'll discuss, okay? Good.
Good. Guess anything different? Huh? You did different? What is your view?
We can modify it here, see what you guys came up with, okay? If you guys thought differently, see if you have different test cases,
Yeah, when you draw it before
okay?
I give my feedback.
Yep, just draw it, yep. Yeah, no worries, just go ahead and draw it.
Just try it.
We broke this down and figured out that all this has to be 8 characters. So then it was that's uppercase, special case, and then the 8 characters.
Okay.
And then we were kind of just trying to figure out the different combinations of, you know,
Okay.
this would be the SC. This would include the 8 characters would include the rest of the uppercase or lowercase, so it would be more lowercase, and then this would be the different. So whenever you put the password in, it could be like capital P A S S W and then like exclamation point D R D, or you can switch it around the lowercase to be in the front or the special character to be.
Oh,
in the
you're
front.
trying to do it for every character, that's what the combination?
Yeah, the combination would be like arranging them, you
Okay.
know.
So that's a possibility, right? But is that most effective way? So if you look at it, flip it, right, it's the same thing as the, right? But instead of doing this, repeat it over 8 times.
No, it wasn't repeated. It was just, these were the different options. I guess you can go either each line or this way. This would be, password would come first, then a special uppercase would come
Okay.
first, then a special character, and then the password ends, but it all has to be 8 characters.
Okay, so it's kind of similar, but it's a different.
Different
metrics
view, yeah, different view.
It's the same thing, right? But you combine that as a metrics view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's good, right? So think of it, right? So you guys are on the right track, right? It has to be anything less than or more than 8 characters, irrespective of whether it has uppercase or lowercase, you don't care, it's invalid, right? Anything which is 8 characters, then you have to think about it, does it have uppercase or lowercase? Right? And if it is, then you go through all of this combination. So that's one way definitely you can do it. Or you can just say it's within the 8 characters, then you can utilize similar path, right? Right, so you can do the similar thing, but the way you can do it is within 8, all right? You can say, do I have at least one uppercase? Or no uppercase? Right? If there is no uppercase, it's invalid right there. If it is uppercase, then I can just say it has at least one special character.
Yeah.
If it is, then I'm good. If there is none, then there is no special characters. Okay? So if you look at it, instead of like it's doing it like the 6, you just find it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you reduce 1 this case. Still achieve the same goal. Right? But you use the nesting capabilities to go there. Exact same outcome as that. Okay, which is fine. And so either solution is right. There's nothing wrong. Okay. It's good. Understand it?
Yeah.
One question.
Isn't it?
I'm not sure I'm asking you right question or no, but if just in case, if anybody put 2 upper character, so is we have to check this or no?
Do I care?
It says at least
Requirement,
one.
at least one uppercase.
Okay, so
It could be 6 uppercase and 2 special.
then it's fine, check then.
That's what it goes, right? That's what I'm saying. 8 character, is there at least one uppercase? Yes, I'm good. Right? Then I'm gonna say, is there at least one special character? As long as these 2 conditions are met, work for a 8 character, this path is valid path, positive path, everything else is negative path. So 4 negative and 1 positive scenario.
So we did one like all 8 uppercase. Then what will happen? Like it will be failed. So
It will fail, right? Because it will go all uppercase, no special characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should, according to the requirements.
So if you look at it, right, so that's this path.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Yes. And we did one no data. Is it wrong or right?
No data is different than 8 character. 0 character is still less than 8 characters.
I mean, you can technically check for it. You can list
Yeah.
it out, or you can break down that 8 character one, no data and less than 8 characters.
Yeah, then we did no character less than 8, more than 8. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, all special character we did 8. Yeah, that will be same. No uppercase. Yeah, all special. Yeah, we did that. So, Dasmita, we are good then. See? Yeah, we did the same 8 character. No
I see.
special.
I guess.
Sir, I could not.
Are you guys good?
Yeah. Yeah, and we did good. Just we could not make the tree. Next time we'll make the tree.
The important part is, do you guys understand the process?
Yeah. Yeah.
You make the process for other 40 requirements or 50 requirements or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, obviously not. I mean, you can finish the project, but yeah. You can apply the same technique to other requirements, right?
Yeah.
They will get plenty of homework to work through.
Oh, yeah. There are 2 weeks to do my homework. So, are you guys good? All right. This is the next step that you need to do. You go back into your rooms or in your groups up here. Pick one test case from the tree that you've drawn it and write the detailed test case step by step. So within your folder, when you flip it to the first tab, there is an empty blank copy of the test case that you can use it.
Online, they already have it.
So for online, you already have a template.
In that.
Okay. So as a group, I want all of you to decide one leave or one test case that you're going to write it out all the details. You get 30 minutes to write it out. Okay.
You guys are working with the deadline, right? Your project gave you 30 minutes, so make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll have re-review that. So for online team, I'm going to move you back to your room so that you are able to do that.
Any question anybody has?
Wait, can you please go over one more time what exactly you want us to do?
Okay, so everybody pay attention. This is what I want you to do. For the teams which work on the password requirement. You guys listening?
Yeah.
Okay. For the teams that did the password requirement. This is the tree that you guys came up, right? So we talk about 2 possible combination of 3. I don't care which one you pick it. Okay. Pick one of the test case from this and write it into detail. What it means is this type of test case. All the steps, including the precondition and postcondition, and the data that you will need. Okay, that's why we ask you, understand the context. That's very important for you to write the steps. Okay. The second team, so the team which worked on the other requirement, which is the area manager one. You pick, so this is not the detailed one, right? So you want to go to this one. Okay. So I don't care out of any one of the 5 here or our rep the 5. So out of 10 test cases, pick one test case and write step-by-step instruction in detail, just like what we asked for the other team.
So we just have to pick one branch.
Pick one branch, one leaf.
Yep.
Pick one leaf and write it, the
That's your
detailed test
test
case. Okay, hang on, guys. This is one thing I want you guys to be aware of this. When there are 20 people talks it, if somebody has a question, the online team members cannot hear it, nor can I hear it from the phone. So I want all of you to Be a little bit patient as you go through it. Let everybody else in the class finish their question before talking. Okay, can we do that for the rest of the sessions? Thank you.
I was just saying, I just want to know where the test document is, like where in the.
I think it's at the third tab.
Yeah, go to the third tab, yep.
And then flip 3 pages, and then you're gonna find it.
And one of you will need to write it, okay, not everybody, right? And you can share it, you can take a picture, send to other folks, I mean, it's perfectly fine. Make sure it's a one test case per team.
Okay, online, when you write it, go ahead and write it into the template. Arshil has put the template out for you on the folder. So we would like you to share the completed template version.
Yeah, to create in the Word document, okay? It's a test case template okay, in the shared folder.
Okay, are we good? Before we get into a lot of conversation, are we good? Online, are you guys good?
I think so.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
let's go with the breakout rooms then. You get 30 minutes to do it.
I have one question. Please
Yes,
wait.
sister.
So is it under the August 21-22 batch text case template .doc?
Yeah.
Yep, you can download it and create a Word open in the Word and type it in right there, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send all of you in the room for 30 minutes.
Yeah, we will leave it on, we will leave it on. So,
In that,
yeah, and we will send you as well, yeah, so.
no. For writing, okay,
Yeah.
what do you want? I was just
Yeah,
take a
yes, yes.
picture.
There you
Scenario?
Yeah,
Like how you write it.
Yep. take a
Is this
picture,
one?
yeah, this is what you have, right?
Missing.
And
Missing at least one required field.
and another one, what you write, like what you showed before, right?
We
So
take
take a
one-
picture of this and I'll flip into the other.
Yeah, I already did it.
Okay.
No, we will send you in the email as well, this thing will come to you as a email.
It will have, so first one.
Just good, this is not, you don't want to copy this,
Okay.
because it's gonna be completely different. Yeah.
Just understand it, right, what you need.
Yeah. We will send you all this in the email, okay? You will have it for your app.
So 12:25.
You're supposed to be 16 more.
So why don't we start like it's this time with Susmita, you and Yuti to go first, and then we'll switch to the second team. So you should be able to use the share button and share your Word document around the test case that you use it.
The computer was so slow, we couldn't do anything.
No, we did half. You show that and rest we can say. Yeah.
Very
So,
less.
Very slow. It was very slow. So we stopped sharing screen and we tried our best.
okay, just share whatever you have.
Yeah. Share that and then we can tell the. Yes.
Okay.
Because you should be able to see a share screen button at the bottom. Use that. And then you should be able to share it. There we go. Okay, go ahead and share your Word document. There we go. So let's talk through it. What is the leaf or branch that you selected
Zoom in a little bit.
and what it is? Can you zoom in a little bit more? Sushmita, if you're talking,
Mm-hmm.
Please zoom into the document a little bit so that folks can see it here.
Okay. That is the zooming button.
On the left side, you have summary, you can close that out. Or if you want us to, want to take control of it, you can.
You can click on the percentage on the left toolbar. And you can increase that.
Sorry. Yes. Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a control, request control somewhere.
And I make it to more this percentage.
Yeah, you just click on that. Yeah.
Yep, that's better. Okay. Okay.
okay. So talk through it as you go through it. So you probably want to update the test title to reflect your test scenario. So can you talk just at a high level what test scenario you're using it? Both of you did a password, right?
Yes.
The super users should be able to create a password for the users.
Okay.
That would be.
And the password should be 8 character.
So you're doing a positive test case?
Mm-hmm. We are doing the positive test case.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what is the condition you are testing? You don't have that information.
So that we wrote actually, yeah. So that will be.
The precondition is that the super user should able to log in.
Okay.
To the system.
Okay. What type of user you are trying to create?
A dealer user.
Dealer user.
Okay, so one of the other precondition, if you're trying to create a dealer user, is that dealer has to exist, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you need to put all of this as part of your precondition.
Oh, you go to the down one. I think we've written there. This go to the down. The next.
I think you think here. I mean, obviously preconditions not there. Test summary should reflect what scenario you are testing, right?
Yeah. Scroll down to steps.
Yeah. Let's see the steps quickly. See what else you have.
Yeah, we were thinking this one.
The super user will be able to log into the system first.
Okay.
So once the super user is able to log into the system, he can navigate to the create username and password page.
They can create the user we wanted there, right? We create dealers. We wanted to.
Okay, so here's a simple question. If you give this sets of instruction to anybody in the class, do you think they will be able to create it? Do you think they know how to log into the system? do you think they know how to navigate to create a user?
I think it's not finished what they have,
Right.
so,
No, but even for those two steps,
yeah. It's
right,
not
that's what I'm
clear.
focusing. It's not clear for those two steps that you're trying to do it. So you need to make sure that whatever you put in, it's a clear. Also, the action, right? Remember
So-
what I said, who's doing it. I put the data and I says, what action I'm gonna take it? And when I take it, what is the expected results?
So you want us to write like they should go to the URL and then log in and password and then put action and they should be able to log in. The
I
super
would recommend, while you're doing it for the first time,
yeah.
provide as much detail as you can. So that there is a clarity.
So like you want to start from the
Okay.
beginning.
It will.
We only focused on, how to create the password. So the precondition is that the super user is already logged in. He knows how to log in and everything. Now he is in the page where he can create the username or password.
Then let's review somebody else's, I think, Dilip,
Yeah.
maybe that somebody, let's.
So
let's
hang on to
review.
that.
Yep,
Before that, you had a question.
And so I was saying like, do we start with the, from the beginning?
So,
Just down the steps as we go, or where do we start?
so here's my pointer, right? What is your preconditions? What is true in the system? And that's what I would focus on. Where do I start with it? If your precondition says, hey, I'm already logged in into the system, then you go from there. If your precondition says, hey, that user exists in the system as a super user, then you have to tell it. You can't expect it somebody to just say, hey, they already know what they're doing and start at this point. You have to navigate them. You have to guide them to do the exact same thing that you want them to do it. Okay, so the starting point, you identify based on a precondition, but also make sure you don't just say, hey, this thing is, the password exists, right? Don't negate the whole purpose of test case by putting that in the precondition. Okay, so any other team who has done a password one? Okay, go ahead and talk through yours.
The first step, we put this in the browser, go to the URL specified in the data section and click go.
Okay.
On the expected result view of this, the browser will display homepage for the application, show you creating user and password.
Okay, creating users.
No, creating password.
Okay, so think about that. Are you just creating a password? Because look at the requirement. What is the context of the requirements? Is that while I'm creating a user, I will provide the password. And that's when this thing kicks in. So,
so as soon as you log in, I mean, you're not gonna be able to create anything, right? You're gonna end up on your home page, right? Cause I'm not sure you guys read through that page flow diagram in the back, how the system's supposed to work.
right,
So then the browser only will display homepage, that's the one.
So that's the expected result for the first step, but then what is the next step?
what is the second step then you have?
The second step, I think, the way we understood was, we are creating the user and the password. So first thing, we're gonna put like user, and then the page will, show that, the user is created. And then the next page will go to the password page where you have to put in the password. Because you're
Okay,
not gonna get the password page without.
So you have to think about it. I want you guys to think about it. You're thinking it's only on login. Don't think on login, you're creating a user. So remember one of these, so that's why you need to start thinking about everything is linked in. So the second team, which was creating all these users, while they're creating users, they will have to create the user ID and the password at the same time. Right? So you can't create a user and not create a password. Because you're creating the user ID and password together in the creation process. So as Harshal said, look at the page flow diagram, look through the data section to understand what needs to happen. Because that's going to drive what your steps are going to be. Okay, you had a question.
Oh,
You're saying the password scenario, right? It's the same one?
Yeah,
Okay, all
that's the
right,
same.
go ahead, yeah.
so we can do ours, so step by step, we kind of overthought it. I feel like we overthought.
That's
everything.
okay.
But we started like the top from the offer, them approaching the dealer and then them creating an account, and then they got the basis of like this account, the password. They told the dealer you need to have a password that contains 8 characters, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, our steps to actually, I feel like we were doing a test. So we were testing to see if the password is able to log in because we picked the correct, the tree that we with the correct password. So it was access to Earl, and then the expected results were like the homepage loads. And then after it loads, you locate the login bar, and then the expected result for that would be login bar is accessible.
Mhm.
And then you type in a username, granted you already have a username, and then you add the password and you press login. And then if you're successfully logged in, then I'm success and pass.
So I think it's good that you're thinking verification step also. But I think it's the flow is a little bit different than what you're thinking. Okay. So let me,
Let's draw that again.
yeah. You know,
I think they are struggling a little bit, for thinking it through, maybe logically, I think might help them,
yeah.
and then worry about the.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna So I'm gonna just write logical thinking, okay? And then you can think about how to write the steps and so on. Right, so first thing, what I'm gonna do is I need to understand who I'm logging as. Right, so let's say I'm kind of log in as a super user, let's just say it's that. So the first thing you're gonna do it is super user, right? Navigate to homepage. Right? And super user login. And that's it. I'm gonna go to the home page, then I'm gonna go to login. Then that's where what Herschel was pointing it out. You need to read all of the information that is available to you. That is the page flow diagram. What do I go from that? So if I look at the page flow, right? From there will be ability to go and click the create user, right? So next one is going to be navigate to create user page. Okay, at that point, I'm gonna like it's create user, right? So as part of it is I'm gonna provide information. Where would I get the information to create user? From the data, right? And some of those information is essentially your first name and last name. Let's say what type of user I'm creating, right? So you need to specify that. Create a dealer user. Let's say I'm doing a dealer user. Okay, so you need to provide information, right? What the dealership information, right?
I mean, whatever is there, right? I mean, all the required information for a dealer, you need to provide there, right?
Including a password. Okay, and then all that. So the password in the data section, that's where you provide what is the value you're going to enter for each one of them. When I do that and click create, what is the expected result should be? I'm successfully able to create a user, right?
What password the user is created successfully.
Right.
With the password that you supply, right?
Right.
That's what you're expecting.
So okay, once it happens, then how do I know that I actually successfully created, right? So I need to go through some validation aspect of that. Yes,
So do we need to write down all the required field information when you're writing the test case, or just we write like, okay, fill out all the
Yeah.
required information?
So if
or
I-
we have to mention
you
it?
have to, because remember, you have to tell what field and what is the value you wanted, because that's what the test case is about. Right? I can't just say, go test the system. I have to be specific. What do you want me to test it? What data you want me to use it? What field, what data I need to put it? That's your job as a quality assurance person to make sure you provide all of that detail.
Yeah, it needs to be very detailed, okay, in the real life scenario, each and every field. You have to provide, you can write it down within the test case, in the test data section. Or you can put an Excel spreadsheet together. If it's more than 10 fields, you might have Excel spreadsheet and you attach within the tool and so forth. Okay, but you have to provide what is the first name, what is the last name,
All of the
all
detail.
the details. that you have to
So
provide.
like, I have to write down in the test cases, okay, fill out the user ID, like user
Yes.
name, so you have to mention.
Yep,
those things.
Yeah,
exactly.
look
what
at
you have
that. What
created.
did I do for this? I mentioned, I need to provide this to field. Here's the data. Every form, everything that you will provide, let's say for a user, creating user, you need 15 fields. You provide all of that information here.
And the data's true over there in the test data, all the,
Yes,
no matter what, how many is there.
yes.
That is correct.
You're telling them exactly how to create it. You're not just saying, go create a user. You're telling them, go this line and this screen, enter this for this information, enter this for this field. You're going that detail.
Think about it, you are creating here, right? So like company like Nationwide, they have people sitting here, right, writing the test cases, but the executing, the people who execute the test case, they are sitting in India. So you document the details here, now they, over there, they're just gonna follow your instruction. And they will just execute the test case, because that's a labor intensive job, I mean, executing that information. So if you don't provide all the details, what they're gonna do? Because they don't know what is required, what is not required. Unless you specify that, that would be an issue. Okay, so you have, your test case needs to be very detailed, very thorough. Okay.
So the validation part that you need to do it is after the user is created, you have to log out as this, because you logged in as a super user. Now you're to wear a user's hat and you need to go back and log in as that particular user to make sure that they are able to successfully log in and see their homepage, right? So I'm gonna log out as super user, right? Go to the application homepage, log in as a dealer user for this person that you created above. And if you are successfully logged in, that means your password worked because it created, it accepted it. Okay, so those are the kind of high level steps. Now you have to take this and write in the detailed steps. But here's the logical flow that you need to go through it. Okay. Questions?
No question? Or you are still thinking? Yes, go ahead, Arsha.
So my question was like, when we were writing the step, we were thinking that we are creating a password.
I'm still creating a password.
Right. So the way we thought was like, we are creating the user. And we are providing the password, so we have to create the user ID. Or
Are you creating a user ID or
no,
system
we are not,
generated?
we are assuming that, the user ID is there. And we are trying to create password for that user ID.
That's why its context is very important of reading the whole document. Right? That's why if you look at it, we asked you to read it, then we went through it, we asked you to read it again. Now, you're taking the information from the document and applying that.
because you're not going to create, you have to create a user in order to create the user ID, password, everything at the same time. You are not creating it like parts and pieces.
Right.
Okay, everything is created together. Right, when you
Now-
create a user. Yeah.
Now, there are two different ways you can create the password, right? So typically is you create a user ID and generate a system generated password and ask them to go ahead and reset their passwords, right? That's one way. But in this one, if you read the requirement, it clearly says, I'm going to create your password while I'm doing it. That's the reason why you need to go through this path. That's why it's important of reading that information and applying it in the context.
Okay, so my question is like when you write down all this steps, so the way we were writing is when you said create dealer user and then provide information with first name, last name dealer, and then where it says password, that's what we were creating the scenario or not the test.
But that's what you need to look at it, right? Based on a requirement, it says password is going to be created at the same time.
Okay.
So I have to provide the password. And then at this point, I don't know whether system accepted, right? You should see it when user is created successfully. Just because it's created successfully, that doesn't mean that the user can log in, right? Because why are you creating passwords so user can log in, right? So you need to verify that by actually logging as that user. And once you do that, then you know that, hey, not only you created, but I can log in using that password. Because that's the only way to validate whether it's works in the system or not.
But if we are doing like the password or negative, then we don't have to follow the other steps like log out.
No, you will still do the same thing. You just provide an invalid password, and then that should fail the user creation.
Right, but the bottom ones, like log out as super user, we are not doing that because we have not created the password.
Right. So if you fail it, right, that's where that things. So your expected results. So you don't need other steps,
Right, that's steps two.
but
Right,
you
so
need
that's
the
the-
steps if you're successful, right? Okay. Right, let's give second team an opportunity. So team 2 online. I'm going to stop sharing it. You go ahead and share what you have created. Right?
You guys can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah.
Can you expand the fonts a little bit higher so that the people at the back of the room can see it too?
This is font. Okay.
There you go. That's good.
Okay.
Are you guys able to see it? Yes. Right. All right. Talk through it. So you say that you're doing it dealer user. Is it a positive test case, negative test case?
Yeah, this is a positive test case.
Okay. So you want to like it's reflect that, right? So like it's all you just say is area manager can successfully create dealer user. That's what the test thing you're trying to do it. Okay.
Is it with the required fields? Because that's a big, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what they have.
Okay, hang on for pre.
So we were a little confused about the dependency. Like
So-
what exactly?
Hold on to dependency. Before that, let's talk through the precondition. All right. What exactly you're trying to put as precondition?
The condition is that
So
the
think of it, what are you doing as part of this requirement? You are testing two things. One is area manager having access to create the user, and then you can successfully create the user, right? That's what you're trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
right? So does your precondition reflect that? So when you say it's use the URL provided, well, what does that has to do with precondition? That's your data,
to
right?
to log into the website. That's why.
but that's not a precondition. That's your data.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So,
Precondition is area user exists in the area manager exists in the system. Right? Because if I don't have a credential to like, log into the system, I can't create a user. So that's what should be your precondition.
so data user should already exist, you said?
No, the area manager should exist in the system.
Yeah,
right?
area manager. Yeah.
That's what should be your precondition.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one, yeah.
The other precondition should be is the dealer user you're trying to create doesn't exist in the system.
Yeah, you can technically do that.
Right. So those two are your preconditions.
Okay. Oh, I did do that. And dependency is I thought it was a data dependent because without any data they cannot create anything.
Yeah, but this dependency here is not necessarily a data dependency. It's dependency on other external systems or factors.
Like in what way?
Okay, so that will be blank. So think about it, right? Whenever you're trying to test the notification functionality, your dependency is that email service is up. Right?
Mhm.
That's your because without that, you won't be able to successfully create an email. Right? And then thing which is not part of your system, it's an external system. That's where your dependencies are.
Okay.
Let's move to steps. Again, make sure your test summary is crisp and clear. Just take a look at the super user login that Herschel will send you. I'll give you a sense on that. Okay. All right. So you don't have steps yet. You have.
Yeah, we were kind of stalling on steps.
Okay. All right. The teams in the class. Do you have steps? Are you ready?
See what you guys have.
Whatever you have.
Just read whatever you have. Don't worry.
Just read it. You don't have to.
There's no right
Just
or
read
wrong.
it.
So we have area manager will select the user type as dealer user in home page. And second step, fill out all the information and everything required information for dealer. Then third step, they fill out all the optional field information in the user profile page. And the last one, click the submit button and to create the user.
Yeah, so think about it. Is it detailed enough? And is every step has an action associated with it? Or is it just a description? Right? Unless you put an action.
Yeah.
System is never going to react and give you response, right? So you need to think about it. So if I flip on this one, right? Switch the super user with the area manager. Right? Same thing. Right? They're able to create a dealer user. So you go through all the way. So if you flip the super user with the area manager, it is more or less kind of same steps. Right? All you're validating it is, can I create successfully? Now, in terms of creation, depending on the path that you take it, you need to understand what are the required fields. If it's a positive scenario, you need to make sure you provide all of that and provide optional fields. Right? And then that's where you need to provide the detail. You have to be explicit to what each field's are. Okay. So
Yeah, but essentially it's the same scenario.
it's the same
right?
scenario.
It's the same scenario with just a different person.
Just a perspective, right? So one is you're trying to do the validating password. The other one is that's where you start looking at it as, hey, if I write this test case, does it allow me to validate multiple functionality? Which is, this is a perfect example. Okay. It's good.
Any question on this one?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Actually, I have one more question.
Uh-huh.
Can you, I just want to clear what kind of mindset, do we need, I for myself, think that way to for the test steps. So like, what way should I think?
So it's too broad, right? So the way I would just say is, let's think the detail. Simplest mindset way I want to do it is, if you write that test case and give it to somebody to run it, can they run it without asking you any questions?
Okay.
If they can, then it has the needed detail enough information. If they have to come back and ask a few questions to you before they can run it, that's a typical indication that you don't have sufficient detail for them to do it.
So it can be more as detailed as possible too.
Preferably, right? I would err always on the sides of providing more detail than less detail.
Okay.
Okay. Now, again, I've just put the logic here. You still need to write the steps and expected results, okay? So don't think this is finished. This is just a thought process of this is how I would go about it. Now, once I have this thought process, all I have to do it is, okay, what steps I will do it to do this? What steps I will do this? What steps I will do with this? Okay.
Now, you need to understand the process, business process, okay, in order to write these logical steps. Again, I want to emphasize that, okay? If you don't understand the logical process, I mean, well, then you're gonna struggle writing the step.
So think the whole context. That's why when we broke it down into the tree, yes, do you understand the context? Once you understand the context, then you can just go ahead and do this effectively. Yes, Nathan?
Okay, sir. Actually, whatever you said, it is really, like, now I understand what I should do. But the thing is, I'm confused. Basically, we all four are confused. We choose dealer user for creating test case. That
Which scenario you are saying?
positive scenario, it like just creating dealer user. So we are confused that we should go till end, means like can create, or then after that, like that tree, that other fields too. So we have to mention all the
Whichever path that you're taking it, that's what you need to address. Don't think about the other path. So again, when you say till end, the test cases are the leaves. Yeah. So you're not writing test cases here. You're writing test case for this. You're writing test case for this.
Yes.
Always write it, the test cases for the leaves. Yes.
And when you write a test title or test summary here, right? What you are saying is, area manager is creating a dealer user
Using
required and optional fields. That's what it should go in your test summary and test title. So that we know what is your
what path you
criteria.
follow.
Second one, right? Second scenario, second test case, you will write. It should have test summary. Area manager can create a dealer user.
Just with the required.
With the required fields. That would be your second test case. Okay,
Yeah.
so that should be reflected
Yeah,
in
we were
your
confused
test.
about that. Because basically we start, first point. So. we
Always,
thought,
the leaves.
That we should.
The test cases are your leaves.
On that case, that one can be like a condition.
That don't
Not
think
necessary.
precondition. They are not precondition.
Don't mix and match those two things. Precondition is based on this context, what has to be true before I can execute this? Right? In this case, right, the precondition is, hey, area manager needs to exist because you have to log in as he or she in order to do all the tasks. If they don't exist, you can't do anything in the system.
Now, if it doesn't exist, then you can go as a tester, you can create area manager first, write down all the steps, and then log in as that area manager,
And then do
and
this.
then do all the tasks. You can do that, okay, if you don't put it in precondition.
So can you repeat like what you said the precondition meant again?
So there are two ways, right? If I don't put any precondition, that means I'm going to create an area manager first in the system. So I'm going to write the detailed steps to create an area manager first. Then I will create it, I will log in as that area manager. and I'll create the dealer user. Or I can put the precondition that area may not exist in the system. Then I have to write it only the steps to log in as area manager,
So like,
and then do the work.
so like on ours, when we said, a password needs to be so and so, the precondition would be that there's somebody making the password.
No, the precondition would be the user. Remember, the password I'm creating it when I'm creating a user. So what user I'm creating it and when I'm creating it.
Who is
So
doing
those and who is creating, those are your preconditions. Yeah.
Yep.
Those will be your precondition. Can we have one conversation at a time? Thank you.
Did you?
You had a question?
I wanted to know if you guys had a sample sheet with already like for the software, what we just did, you guys have like a sample sheet with the already done one, so like maybe we can go back and then look at how you guys did it from your point of view, and maybe that, I think that will help me more if I looked at it and saw the steps, and if that makes sense. The one that we already did before we went here, if that makes sense, would
You
that
mean
be available to us?
This one, yes, he will email it to you.
Oh, okay.
All of
I'll
this. thing.
email you, but I'll guarantee you, everybody writes differently. So even if we think it.
For
we
Harsh and
write
I
one
will
way,
write completely
completely
different.
different. Okay, even Dilip writes the same test case and I write it, it will be different. Okay. It's all you, what you think logically. Some people have preconditions, some people may not. Okay, and it's perfectly fine as long as you include all the steps.
You focus on the outcome.
Yeah.
Right,
What is the outcome? You are verifying the functionality. That's your goal here.
right. So I'll tell you, like, it's right. So we'll send you this information. But the first thing you should do it is using this information. Using the context, all we talked about within the data sections and the navigation, you should write a detailed step-by-step instructions. Get yourself comfortable with that first, because now that you know the logic, right? So everybody thinks differently. As I say, it's the process, right? So the way I do it is somebody gives me a requirement, I just break it down. What are the possible scenarios? Then I take for each scenario, I take it as, okay, now what are the probabilities? Right? What are the permutation combination that I need to deal with that? So I draw the tree. Then I take it, okay, now that I have the tree, if I have to do it, what is logical steps I will take it to actually execute that? And then I take that logical step and convert that into the detailed steps. Right? So when we did the initial, even the super user login, right? We started with the requirement. It says, okay, this is a broad requirement. I need to log in order to do this. Well, what are the possible ways I can log in? What are things could fail? What are positive, negative test cases? And then we take that and then we started talking about, let's talk about what will be precondition. Let's talk about what are the first step, second step, third step. Right? At each step, what would be the expected result? So I know, hey, now that I reach here, this is what the next thing I will do. That's essentially the process that you need to think about it.
It comes with
Now,
the
how
practice.
you build the tree, that can vary, right? How Harshal builds the tree versus how I build a tree may be different. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, right? So you did this tree for password. This is completely fine. You were done this way. I do it this way. Because I think it differently. Right? I always say it's instead of doing all permutation combination, I just go, hey, is this valid? Yeah, okay, then what is the next condition needs to be valid? That's how I go about it. That's fine. Right? At the end of the day, you are like it's validating all the leaves in order to make sure, can I meet those requirements? Somebody may be able to do it in 4 test cases. Somebody might do it in 6 test cases. That doesn't mean one is right or wrong. Right? It's just 2 different ways to do the things. As long as you accomplish the same outcome, that's what it matters. Okay. So everybody be clear on the process. We'll have this as well as the Word document. We'll send it out.
Let's talk about the homework with it.
Yeah.
Make sure they get that
All right.
done as well.
So yeah, we're a little bit past time. Okay, so here is what you need to do it over the next 2 weeks, right? We are not going to meet next Saturday and Sunday because it's a long weekend. We understand people will be out, so that's why we skip it. But we're still going to meet on Thursdays. Right? So you're still going to do the homework. So your homework is for the Herschel is gonna send it out 6 requirements, specific requirements. You need to draw 3 for each one of them as an individual. So this is not a team homework. This is individual homework. Each one of you is gonna do 3 for each one of them. And we'll review the tree on Thursday. Then, once you're done with the tree, you need to write 1 test case for each one of the requirements. So I don't care, pick whichever branch you want to pick it for each requirement and write test cases. So between now and 2 weeks from now, when we get back again in the classroom, what is expected is that you have 6 trees for this 6 and then 6 requirement laid out. Test cases. Okay.
So this next Thursday, coming Thursday, we will review the test scenarios. And you might have to revise it after the discussion on Thursday, right?
And then you take that.
From that Thursday to the Thursday after Labor Day, you should work through the 6 test cases from home.
And we'll review those.
And we'll review those on Thursday, second Thursday, just before the class, okay?
Let me give you that date, specific dates, right?
I want to make sure you guys understand what's in the homework.
On first, you're bringing it 3 for the 6 requirement that he's going to send out in an email, which are the 160 listed here. On 8th, you're going to write 6 test cases, 1 for each requirement. Okay, we're going to review that, and you fix it. So when you come in the class on 10th, everybody in the classroom should have 6 updated test cases with the understanding for each one of this requirement. Yes,
Right.
Archana.
For example, the tree we did, we only did one of the leaf, as the requirement, so that's what we are doing.
That's the test case. Those are what you're doing in 8
So we are just doing one for each tree.
for each tree.
Yeah, one.
Yeah,
Okay.
you pick.
Total 6 test cases, 1 from each different requirements here.
Yeah.
But important part is, okay, getting the tree right, or you need, in order to do that, you need to understand the requirement. So you might have to read the documents again. Okay, if you are behind, make sure you read the requirements, documents again, understand the business process. Who is doing the work, what point this requirement comes into play, right? You need to have that understanding. Without that, you won't be able to do the trees. So
No.
spend time on it, okay?
The pace is going to be picked up. You're doing it one time, right? So every time the next task is going to be built on top of it. So we ask you to review the requirements document. This activity is built on top of it. Right? You build the trees. The next activity, write the test cases built on top of that. So make sure you stay up with that as you go through it. Because once you fall down, you have to catch multiple steps.
And good thing you have a break, okay? 2 weeks break, so at least now you have time to catch up, go back to the
Requirements.
requirement document, design document, read through it. Typically, we wrap up this thing in 6 weeks, so they typically don't get break. But here, you guys are lucky, you have 1 week break.
Any questions before we break for the day?
So all of these requirements, there's 2.6.6,
Yes.
all of these things, right?
Yes.
All 6 requirements.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 requirements, 6 trees.
Well,
He will send
have
you an
that in the
email.
You don't need to take picture. I'll put the instruction as well and everything, what is the homework. Anybody online, anybody has a question?
No, sir.
All right, then I think we are wrapping up then here. And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you.
All righty,
Take care.
all righty.
Bye. See you.
You.
We're done.
All right, Thursday.